Good afternoon. My name is Dave Zeek. I'm a regent at the University of Washington, but also chair of the Presidential Search Advisory Committee. Today I'm joined by several colleagues from the committee. To my far left is Roy Diaz, who's got 4 degrees from the UW, including a law degree and a PhD, and I think spends most of his time now on intellectual property issues for a large company, an international company. Professor Louisa McKenzie is chair of the Faculty Senate. She's a member of the Search Advisory Committee. With me as well as Alberto Pimentel, who's a founding partner of SPNA, which specializes in higher education search, executive search. His firm was chosen from among half a dozen that the Regents interviewed earlier this year. And he and some other members of his team, other partners, are leading the search staffing part of it with us. And then Tyler Lang is secretary to the Board of Regents, but also is lead staff on the search process. I note today that we'll have sign interpreters and captioners for accessibility. So I ask you as speakers to speak at a measured pace. From the table here, if you would identify yourselves, if we don't call you by name and don't correctly identify you, it's helpful to us to know where you're coming from, what your connection to the university is as well. I would ask you to speak at a measured pace to allow time for transition from one speaker to another. I'd also like to begin with a few words of context and then pass the baton to Alberto for further context. Selecting a university president is the most important job the Board of Regents does. Many members of the UW community are certainly familiar with searches for faculty members, deans, and even the provost, and those searches often include an open opportunity to meet and evaluate finalists in person. Presidential searches are different. They are historically and commonly done in what is called a closed search. When you get down to half a dozen candidates that you're looking at seriously, they're frequently presidents at other universities, and you can imagine the difficulty if they come here and declare to us publicly that the University of Washington is far better than the place they're serving, the University of Iowa or wherever it happens to be. It's a difficulty to go back to Iowa City and explain yourself to your trustees and to your community. So presidential searches tend to be closed. In the case of the University of Washington, for the last 50 years or so, they have been quote-unquote closed searches. Certainly the Presidential Search Advisory Committee will be interviewing candidates as we go along the way, and the board will interview in person if we pass along 4 candidates, which is sort of the working plan. They will interview all those folks in person and also do extensive research with people who have worked with those folks before or work on their campus or in their business presently. At any rate, that all means that your input today is crucial to us. Your perspectives will shape the leadership profile that guides our Search Advisory Committee, that attracts candidates to UW, and that helps shape the rubric by which we will evaluate potential candidates. The board has been listening since early this summer, partly because we're on a quarter system and there are a dozen or more searches like this. I think there are 14 presently. As Alberto likes to say, every week there's a new addition to that group that's interviewing for presidents at the same level we are. So it means that many of those campuses are on a semester system. They started a month ago with their in-person listening sessions like this, so they're ahead in that. Consequently, we started very early doing the stuff that we could do. We talked to the Faculty Senate fairly early. We talked to student government leadership. We talked to many of the leadership within the university. You may have noticed that we've also opened it up with a survey in these listening sessions. We're trying to move rapidly now so that we don't fall behind all these other searches. But I would also tell you that our #1 job is to find the right person, not the quickest person we can get to. And so that may mean that we decide to slow down the search. If we don't find candidates that we think are really good, we may slow it down. Otherwise, we may proceed apace with these other universities. Today we are here to listen to your comments, and for that we thank you. As you make your comments, I would ask you to consider a few things. It's not just what matters to you as an individual that's of interest to us, or to your group or your constituency. It matters to us what you think we need in a president who will serve the university as a whole. The president is the outward face of the university, responsible for representing the UW to stakeholders across the state and across the world, folks like the legislature, tribal governments, and others that would be obvious. But the president is also the ultimate internal voice of the university, the chief executive officer, working with faculty to administer academic operations, but also personally responsible for choosing the leadership of large public serving areas such as UW Medicine. Some of the things we would like to know from you are, what sort of tone do you hope a new president will set? What characteristics might help a new president succeed at the UW? And which successes and challenges might a new president be unaware of? What are some components of this particular position that someone might know if they're not from this part of the world or have familiarity with it, or if they don't know the UW, are there some things that you would suggest we take a particular look at in terms of challenges? With that, let me turn it over to Alberto from SBNA for a brief additional context, including the shifting landscape of higher ed, and specifically presidential searches, presidential duties, and the attractiveness of the presidency of the UW to candidates nationwide or worldwide. Alberto.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. We look forward to hearing your comments. It's crucial that as we begin this process that we generate a level of enthusiasm both about the position as well as the university itself. To do that, we need your assistance and your thoughts and your comments about the kind of individual we should be focusing on. Know that in today's environment, the competition is rather steep for executive talent. More and more individuals are opting not to pursue this role. And I'm not talking specifically about the University of Washington. They're just opting not to go into administration and into presidencies in particular and specifically. Part of that is driven by the national tone that has changed towards higher education. Part of it is the political nature that many presidents find themselves having to deal with, the environment. And part of it is social media and any number of different things. That said, the competition is real. There has been a lot of turnover in the last several years, specifically the last 4 years, where we could chart the number of presidents that have vacated their positions, most of them voluntarily, who have just decided that they either do not want to do the role anymore, or others who have decided that their time would be better spent in other areas of the university. I mentioned to other groups that currently there are about 14 different presidential searches currently open, but that also in the 146 or so R1 institutions, that almost 100 of those institutions currently have brand new presidents as of 4 years ago. The same is true if we look at the stats for the provosts. In fact, there are over 100 new provosts in the same 146 universities. If we go deeper into the dean positions, we see the same level of movement and turnover. That just means that we need to be very specific and very picky about what it is that we should be looking for and the type of leader that you may want. This is a situation where being discriminating and being very exact in terms of what you wish as your new leader is going to pay high dividends, as one size does not fit all. And so we're going to ask that as you think about your comments today, that you be as precise as you can, you be as forthright as you can with this, because the more information that we have, the better that we are able to describe the opportunity to prospective candidates, the more excited they'll be, and we significantly increase the likelihood of identifying those individuals who are a better match and better alignment with the mission and values of this institution. Now, we start from a strong place. This university has a heck of a reputation, and so does your current president. The positive aspects of your university, and those are the outward signs, the rankings, the success that you've had in the health sciences, the size of your research program, the quality, the overall quality of the university. Those are all wonderful things. But they're heavily highlighted by the fact that you have a president that is very, very well known and highly respected across the academy. And so that has already generated a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of individuals calling and wanting to talk about the opportunity. So now what we need to do is put a fine point on those discussions. And this is where the meeting today and those meetings that we've had previously will be of particular help to us in recruiting the candidates. So we look forward to your comments today. We hope that you could be as candid as possible with us, and that would allow us to do the best job on your behalf.
Thank you. I should have mentioned Roy Diaz, in addition to his academic achievements, is a past president of the University of Washington Alumni Association, so has been very active in legislative affairs and alumni affairs for a long time. So his experience with the UW is beyond the studies that he undertook there. Mr. Lang, let me turn it over to you to call each commenter in turn, if you would.
Thank you, Regent Zeke. So Regent Zeke and Alberto have given some good food for thought, and I hope you bear it in mind as I call you up in the order in which you signed up. Be aware that the members of the Search Advisory Committee may in fact ask you questions. First, we have Ryan McIrvin.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Sorry, I get a little feedback there. My name is Ryan McIrvin. I'm the Director of Government and Community Relations here at UW Bothell. I really thank you for coming out here today to hear from our campus specifically. We are a tri-campus or a budding campus system at the University of Washington, and I think being here recognizes the importance of our voice and also the voice down in Tacoma as well. As you mentioned, this is a highly political role, and I work obviously in the political sphere, so I see a lot of value in this being a person who can champion all three campuses and medicine, basically all of the university as a whole that makes it up down in Olympia, to make sure that we are getting the resources we need in order to carry out our mission. This campus was founded on a mission of access, and we've been doing a good job of providing that access here in sort of a regional setting, but we've been growing and maturing. If you've been around the campus, you'll notice a few new buildings in place, thanks to funding from the legislature, thanks to exploring new creative ways, private-public partnerships that built our housing. We need to be able to get those resources in order to grow and continue to meet those needs. We still have many who are locked out of access to that degree, as this need has not gotten smaller, and we're struggling to make it able so we can achieve our mission when we have one of the lowest square footage per student in the state, certainly amongst the three UW campuses. And so in order to meet that need, I'm focusing very heavily in my work on making sure that we add that additional infrastructure and space so that we have room to grow. We've developed a campus master plan that has the blueprint for that growth and are awaiting the opportunity to invest in that. And so we are looking for a president who not only, I would say, carries out that political mission, is able to champion the cause of all three campuses down in Olympia, but can also see the potential on this campus and the need to invest further here in order to carry out that larger UW mission, recognizing there are limited opportunities still on the Seattle campus. Granted, there are a lot of buildings there that also need some maintenance, and that is well understood. But someone who can balance that, ultimately, I think is what I'm seeking in our next president. Finally, I want to conclude by really thanking President Kause, who has been a champion for this campus down in Olympia, who has, in events I've heard her speak out, frequently mentioned, not failed to mention UW Bothell and UW Tacoma in the same sentence, and recognizing the value that they contribute to the University of Washington. So with that, I thank you for your time, and I'll yield. I'm sure you'll hear more from many folks with similar comments to my own. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next, we have Nora Kenworthy.
Hello, Nora Kenworthy. It's Kenworthy. I'm a professor in the School of Nursing and Health Studies and the outgoing chair of our general faculty organization. I've already been to your ear a bit, so I'm going to try and cede as much time to my colleagues as possible. But I just wanted to highlight a couple things that I've heard in conversations with faculty on our campus that seem particularly important to bring into this search. The first is that, of course, the University of Washington is an R1 institution, and also it is a teaching institution. It's what some of my colleagues call a T1 institution, in that we excel in the teaching as much as we excel in our research. And we provide a tremendous service to our country, but especially to the state of Washington, as an extremely high quality institution of instruction for the next generation of leaders across many, many different fields. And so I think someone who can understand both the unique strengths that we bring to teaching, and I really mean some very innovative and excellent field-leading pedagogies, but also someone who understands the challenges and constraints of what it is to teach in a college classroom, particularly an undergraduate classroom, in the current moment, which has numerous challenges, from academic freedom of speech to dealing with mental health crises, to dealing with some of the ongoing economic and social fallout of the pandemic. I think the second thing is, I think all universities like to think of themselves as special and unique, but we do have a unique faculty governance structure here at the university and a very long history of shared governance. I also serve on the governance board of the American Association of University Professors, and my fellow colleagues from around the country on that board never fail to remind me of how lucky we are to exist at an institution where we have such a rich tradition of shared governance and leadership, and where we have benefited from some really productive relationships between leadership, staff, faculty, and students in guiding our institution. And then finally, from the faculty perspective, all of the work that we do is constrained by what we call, in my field of public health, the upstream cause of limited resources. And in particular, for faculty and for the work that we're able to do, we really are dependent on sustained year-over-year funding from the state of Washington in order to pay the sorts of salaries that make us competitive as an institution, that allow us to support faculty morale and recruit excellent faculty moving into the future. And I think it's clear that we faced significant salary inequities as well as salary deficiencies for faculty, especially compared to the pace at which the cost of living is increasing in our region. And so I think to the extent that we want to continue to be not just an institution of excellence, but also one of equity, we need someone in the presidential role who is going to bravely and repeatedly advocate for that sustained state funding in order to ensure our institution's success. Thank you, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Are there questions?
Thank you for your input. Appreciate it, Professor.
Okay. Next, we have David Pellet. Great.
Hello, my name is David Pellet. I'm an International Student Service Advisor and DSO, which is a designated school official here with our ISS office, International Student Services. And I had a quick question, which was just, I hope that whoever you do select or whoever is chosen is able to understand the importance of international students to the life and well-being and the diversity of perspectives that our university does host. We are, yes, a public university, Washington, a Washington University for Washington by Washington University. But the importance of that international component, the F1 visa students that we host here, I would be curious to know how an incoming president would manage that, especially in this kind of evolving world of enrollment challenges, but also in revenue, and understanding the significance and importance that those students bring to the livelihood of this campus. So that's it from me. Appreciate your time.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. When you say manage, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I think when you're thinking about trying to balance the demand for a UW education from the domestic population, but also from a global population that wants to come to the United States, wants an education in the US, wants to see this as a way to becoming part of this society that we service. And how does an incoming president weigh the catering of resources, financial assistance to those international populations that do want an education at the University of Washington with competing demand from the domestic population? How do you manage that?
No, thank you.
Thank you. That was very helpful. We were talking, we've had several of these conversations recently. And one of the things we have said frequently, David, is that we hear the same perspective from many different voices. This is one we hadn't heard yet, so I really appreciate you coming today and highlighting this one. Others are accretive. You know, we get nuance and we get clearer direction over the course of time when we hear similar comments, but this one was singular, and we're grateful that you came today. Thank you.
Great. Next, we have William Langevin. Come on up.
This is a way more formal setting than I was anticipating, but
Pretend it's informal.
yeah, it really matches the task at hand, though, which is great. William Langevin, I'm the Assistant Director of Annual Giving here at Bothell, housed in advancement. I'm also a double dog, so I bring the perspective of an alum that cares a lot about the University of Washington and working in the field of advancement. We are like a huge leader, and I think that what I'm really hoping for in the next president of the university is somebody who is a really compelling storyteller for the next generation of students, Washington students, international students, students from across the country. Something that Anamari really holds is the ability to capture and inspire, and I think that as higher educational institutions continue to develop their ability to make the case of like why here and why now and why you, I think that the next university president doing that will help out greatly in our recruitment efforts and in our ability to talk to donors, alums, stakeholders, government officials, get them to buy into our mission, so what we can't get from the state, we can get from private support and people that see that leader of the university, believe in what they're selling, and that they can actually achieve it. And that makes our work a lot easier in the fundraising field. So thank you all for being here and taking the time on our campus.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Marie Blakey.
Good afternoon. My name is Marie Blakey, and I am the Associate Vice Chancellor for Marketing and Communications here at the Bothell campus. To set just a little bit of context for my remarks today, I will share that I've been with Bothell for 7.5 years and moved to the state specifically to work for this campus. I also previously worked for 3 other universities of higher ed, all of which were private, and I very specifically chose this university because it's public. So a couple of remarks. Trying to respond to your prompts, when I think about the word tone, what came to mind for me that I wanted to share with you is we truly need someone who's grounded in the mission of the University of Washington. And I found that to be a really appealing piece of coming to the UW. I chose the Bothell campus, but I think it's all 3 campuses in medicine as well. It may not be a private institution, and my 3 previous were religious as well. And I thought, oh, there won't be such a sense of mission. Sense of mission at the University of Washington is remarkable. And you see it in the dedication of our faculty and staff and the commitment of our students and our partnership with the community. So when it comes to tone, I really feel like it's important that someone comes in attracted to our mission and is grounded in that in all the work that they do. Something else that occurs to me in the sense of just the feeling I want from the president is someone who's extremely open. That openness is not just to allow for diversity to flourish, more even than it does now at this university, but open to criticisms and open to feedback and accessible to our campus community and our regional community and the world, because leading a university means being open to new ideas and innovation. And if we don't get that behavior modeled by our president, then we're not going to all be able to do our job. The last thing that occurs to me about tone is being forthright. I would never want to be a university president. It's really important that someone does this. And what really matters, I find, in my small sphere that I work in, is someone who is willing to listen and then also make choices and is brave and can choose priorities like public health, say, for example, and be very clear what you're not willing to do. And I think that's something that Anna Marty has done well. It could be done even more so by our next president, and I would suggest that the current political and international climate will demand that of our next president. When I think about challenges that face the president, I go back, because of my work in marketing and communications, to our brand promise. The UW is supposed to open access to an excellent UW education. And when I came here to this smaller, younger, dynamic, and amazing campus, I realized that access is not just admissions, it also means access to opportunities. And without a president who's actually focusing on the details of what that means once you've joined our community, we're not going to actually fulfill our brand promise of providing access. That means access to opportunities and access to resources. Some of my other UW Bothell colleagues have already spoken to part of this, and I don't want to talk about budget or programs in specific, but just this awareness that access is something that is critical and is actually a broader word than you might think. It's not just getting in. It also means graduating as close as possible to the time that you anticipated and debt-free, or we're not doing our students any favors. The other thing that occurs to me about the concept of living up to our brand promise is the word excellent. My previous institution is an R1, and it's a top 20 university, and so is the UW. But I came to this small campus that doesn't always share that same regard that the Seattle campus does. And it was really eye-opening for me when I tried to be open to understand what the word excellence means. It's not your SAT score, it's not how great your high school was, it doesn't matter what your undergraduate degree was if you're coming into a graduate program. Excellence is something that I think we also need open-mindedness about. The diversity of our students, the diversity of our faculty and staff, the experiences they bring, the goals that they have, the things they want to accomplish are extremely important is when we calculate what excellence actually means. The last word that came up that I really wanted to talk about is accountability. Public trust is a real serious issue with all sorts of institutions. We've done a lot of research here at the UW that shows us there's a lack of trust. The UW, fortunately, has very high regard and a great brand, but that's nothing to be proud of and rest our laurels on. And in fact, in this current climate, if we don't have a president who considers accountability, both externally and internally, to be one of the highest priorities, it's related to that idea of being forthright and having a broad conception of what openness means or access or excellence, then we're not actually going to be able to center our students, who of course become our hundreds of thousands of alumni and are shaping our city, our state, and our world. The last thing I would just give a plug to, which is a little bit more of a personal piece, and it's not just for UW Bothell. I myself had a degree in the humanities. I won't even tell you what my major was because it's not related to any kind of job function at all. I have been embedded as a communicator in the arts for many years. And I would suggest that the current focus of the university on democracy and dialogue is not something that should be a temporary commitment. And as part of that, you mentioned earlier that our rankings, which we all know are sort of suspect, even though we like them when they're good for us, and our work in the sciences, which is critical to the humankind, and our research work is really important. But I would like to go back to this idea that the humanities is not being paid enough attention to. We need people who are critical thinkers in the sciences, and we need people who are educated in the arts. We need people who think about policy, and all of that work in the humanities space, I think, is really, really critical. So it's part of my suggestion that the new president be open to what excellence really means and is open to what we actually owe back to this state as a public institution, is to really help the state and the world, because we're a very powerful state, to truly flourish. And that's not just the sciences, that's also the arts and humanities. I do really appreciate your time. I was encouraged that you nodded several times while I was speaking. I'm happy to take any questions, and again, appreciate you coming to our campus. Thank you.
Just a quick question. We often hear this notion of being grounded on a mission, right? The mission of public service. But what attributes would you be looking for in the new president that would be indicators to me that they're grounded on the mission of public service?
I wasn't going to talk about this, but I was thinking about it driving over here. This concept of being a servant leader is really important to me, especially when you're at a public institution, because we serve the state. We need to be responsive of the needs of the state and individual students, our faculty and staff, our partners, communities. And the way you do that as a leader is to actually have that sense of servant leadership as a philosophy. So that would be something I would look for. When I also say grounded in the mission, I am aware, of course, the University of Washington's mission, but I'll maybe speak more specifically to my experience at UW-Bothell. It's been mentioned already, a true commitment to diversity in all the ways that you might want to define that is incredibly important. For me, being grounded in the mission is collaborative and innovative. These are things that are part of our brand promise. But those are actually not just brand words. Those are behaviors that you can actually measure. And those are commitments that you can actually measure. Are you committed to diversity? Are you committed to collaboration? Are you committed to innovating and being open? So those are the kinds of things when I say grounded in the mission. It partly came because of my experience working at religious institutions. Like, we're not really here to talk about God or anything else, right? But the mission that actually unites such a disparate group of people is actually sort of more powerful than my experience at the other institutions, because we're here because we all are trying to accomplish the same thing. So we really do need a president to come in who is attracted to this university and not just their next job, not just their next portfolio. We actually need someone who specifically wants to come to the University of Washington. And I hope, as I do when I hire, that you actually ask them why the UW, and it needs to be more than a generic answer. I don't know if that helps.
No, that's super helpful.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Okay,
Great,
thanks.
thank you.
Thanks, Marie.
Next on the list is Cara Adams. And I apologize to anyone whose name I mispronounce.
That's correct, Cara. Thank you. Cara Adams, the Director of Community Engagement and Strategic Partnerships here at UW-Bothell. I've been here for 13 years, and I want to speak to the opportunity and the excitement that this new president has in terms of community engagement work. The faculty and staff and students have decades of research and teaching and partnership work with our regional, state, and international communities. And it has been incredible to work with these faculty and staff and students that become our alumni that are dedicated to community engagement. In 2019, all three institutions submitted for the Carnegie Community Engagement Classification, and all three were nationally recognized for community engagement. Individually, though, we had to apply. So there's very unique community context for each of the three institution campuses. And then we're in a unique opportunity where we're reapplying right now this year and doing a deeper dive into our assessment of community engagement, with the hope that all three campuses, by the time that this new president comes on board, we'd be reclassified for a second time nationally recognized in community engagement work. At the same time, there's a tri-campus initiative that President Cauce has directed significant advancement gift funds towards, that faculty and staff have, over the past year and a half, 2 years, have been really looking at the infrastructure of community engagement systems, coordination. We have a community partner advisory group of partner voice influencing this, and there's an incredible infrastructure being set for the next president to launch and take these recommendations forward. So I would say, even for the UW-Bothell Carnegie work, we came out of that work saying we've been let 100 Flowers blooms in terms of partnership work, and that will need to remain in terms of individual faculty, research, and staff, but there's a unique opportunity for strategy implementation around community engagement to take kind of what does it mean beyond the 100 Flowers bloom to really have impact, regional impact, partnership impact, at a deeper level and more strategic level. So I think this is a very exciting time for the next president to build off of President Cauce's foundation, and even, I would say, the decades before Cauce, and there's a really ripeness to take that work forward, and as a short-term kind of priority, like it can be, there's excitement to build off of the work of faculty, staff, and partnerships. So I just want to say that I hope it's named as an exciting and opportunity for, and I hope the next president is really excited about that work and can champion that work and really run with it, that it doesn't, that the foundation is there for them to run with partnership of all the faculty and staff and partners that have been doing this work for decades.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Tyson Marsh.
Good evening. My name is Tyson Marsh, and I'm an associate professor in the School of Educational Studies here at UW Bothell. I'm also a first-generation college student, alumni of the University of Washington, Seattle. I identify as Black, Brown, and Indigenous, and I'm here to express specifically the importance of the legacy of the focus on minoritized communities at our institution. I wouldn't be here without that focus. As an undergraduate at the University of Washington, I was fortunate to be mentored by Mr. Roy Diaz, Dr. Roy Diaz, who sits at the table here, in the Minority Science and Engineering program. In addition, I really kind of gained my focus on racial and educational justice through my work in sitting on the Curriculum Transformation Project, which then Professor Cauce chaired. And so it's very important, given the legacy of the focus on not just DEI, but educational justice at the University of Washington. And I would make the argument that the next president of the University of Washington needs to be keenly aware of that legacy and history, as well as the struggles of the communities in the state of Washington, Black, Brown, Indigenous, and minoritized communities in the state of Washington. I would also say that, and this has been stated before, and I don't want to talk too long, so because I had an opportunity to speak before, but it's super important to understand that the University of Washington has long operated as a predominantly white institution, and then there are other ways of doing things. And so I would also say that it's important to have someone on board that understands how minority-serving institutions work, not just so that we're eligible for federal funds, but so that we can actually make a difference in our communities. And you know, we have a great opportunity given the political context in this country right now. We have an opportunity to continue to be a leader. We're already a leader because of the work that's been done to support the Ethnic Cultural Center at UW, for example, the Instructional Center at UW, so on and so forth. The establishment of the ambassador program in the Office of Minority Affairs and just the Office of Minority Affairs. But I am here representing faculty, and I also want to speak to the importance of understanding the very specific struggles of Black, Brown, Indigenous, and minoritized faculty on all three campuses. And it's important to key into the needs of those faculty because those faculty are leaving at least our campus in disproportionate numbers. And I would hate to see that become a trend across our three campuses. So I really would like to emphasize the importance that the next president of UW have a strong emphasis on educational justice and serving the communities that UW is always committed to serving.
Yeah, quick question, Tyson. Regarding serving, understanding how to serve minority-serving institutions, what are the attributes of that? What are the things that highlight that?
Excellent question. I think first and foremost, it comes first from listening to the needs of your students and creating space for students to bring their concerns forward, as well as faculty and staff. We're not all in a context where we feel we can bring our concerns forward and our ideas forward. And so to create that environment is probably the most valuable thing that the next president could do, and to foster and facilitate that environment. I'd say also kind of a collective approach to leadership and understanding that there are different folks in different communities that have expertise that they can apply that is extremely beneficial to the communities at UW and across our state to better support students from minoritized communities and backgrounds.
Is there something similar for faculty?
In terms of, sorry?
Is there similar concepts for faculty, right? So you talked about creating spaces for students.
Absolutely.
How would you address something like that for faculty?
I think first and foremost, one of the things that we need to do, and this is work that we've been trying to do for a long time at UW, is to really get a handle on the experiences of our faculty through the data that exists about our faculty, and merging that with the demographic data in terms of pay. But in terms of an actual space for minoritized faculty those are spaces that have been created on this campus by minoritized faculty, and on the UW Seattle campus by minoritized faculty. And I know that Anna Mari has done a great job in supporting that, and that support needs to continue moving forward.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Next, we have David Mering.
Hello, my name is David Mering. That's M-O-E-H-R-I-N-G. Thank you for meeting with us today. One of the things I want to jump right to is which characteristics the new president should have. And I'm thinking primarily two. One is a vision for the future, and two is influence. And we can see that right here in the campus that we're in right now. This building is less than 25 years old. This campus before 25 years old was a cattle ranch. And now we are looking at 6,000 students here. We just had 600 students move on to campus. We're no longer a commuter campus. There are students living on this campus. And who would have had this vision that this would have been taking place 25 years ago or 35 years ago when the Bothell institution was created? So having that vision and influence that's going to last beyond their term, right? This is some idea, vision that they're going to have that's going to maybe manifest itself beyond their term here is going to be a very important characteristic to have. One of the examples I also want to share is that with our new students that we have living on campus comes other desires that the students may have. It's one thing to lure students to live here, but it's also have students have an academic environment and also a social environment. So right now we have behind us the Student Recreation Center. It was funded by students, and it's now totally going to be undersized for the needs on this campus. And that building was built in 2015 for $18 million. The campus master plan shows doubling that building for these needs that we have, and that's no longer going to be $18.5 million. That's going to be much more than that. So that's where the influence aspect comes in. Can we rely on our students to pay more tuition when affordability for a broad range of students is very important? Or will we find those partners that we've had in the past to help the students fund their next facility that will have a broader range of academic uses, student club uses, and fitness and health uses? So that's pretty much all I wanted to ask, is that we look for a president with that vision beyond their term and the influence to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions? Okay, thanks. So Regent Zeke, that concludes the list of those who have signed up. Is there anyone else in the room who'd like to offer a comment, a perspective on presidential search?
I was going to say, I've said this before, and I want you to understand the context. We've shared this with several others. I appreciate those of you who've come out today and provided comment. This is helpful. We've heard some things today that we haven't particularly heard before. We haven't heard in this particular way, this nuance, so we're grateful for that. But another role of these listening sessions is simply that they're being held, that emails went out throughout the campus saying they're going to be here listening today. When we're done and we pick finalists and interview those folks and select a president at some point, it's also good that the campus community know that these listening sessions occurred. So we're not focused on, we don't need to have 30 people testify because we're doing lots of other things. broad surveys, and we're talking to selected groups. We go out and solicit comment from lots of groups at the university about who they want as a president. So I just want to thank you for your participation today and let you know that this is a part of a broader strategy to make sure that we make ourselves available. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for your comments. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
I think we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you for attending.